Welcome to the Never Been Promoted podcast with Thomas Helfrich. Get ready for a thrilling adventure as we uncover entrepreneurial journeys and life-changing business insights every week. And now your host, Thomas.
Welcome to another episode of Never Been Promoted, where we unleash your entrepreneur by, looking and speaking and talking to the journeys of other entrepreneurs. Today, joining me is David Greenberg. He goes by Dave. I call him David because he told me at one point in our conversations that only his mom does it. So I wanted to be equal to his mom. That's why I do it. David, thanks for joining today.
Thanks, Thomas. Great to be here.
I appreciate you coming in. As you look at the path that people can choose for entrepreneurship, there's the zero to hero, which is, insane and crazy. And the one that I chose, not knowing there was another path. And there's this other thing called, there's others, but there's another thing called franchising and owning a business with a blueprint. And this is where you're an absolute expert in. You're highly followed on LinkedIn for this. You're going to talk about this. So today's discussion is about another path, another way you could become an entrepreneur, even while you have a full-time job. Do you want to I know you filled out all the forms and I did do that just to get your right frame of mind. Right. Do you want to take a few minutes to just tell us about you a little bit, your company and then go into kind of how you got to own the Empowered franchise?
Sure. Well, thank you, Thomas. I think my headline is I'm a corporate exec turned entrepreneur, now a multi-unit franchisee. And the question I get is, how did I get there? If you reflect on, I had a wonderful career with a wonderful company called Ford Motor Company. Took me around the company, around the world, to Japan, Toronto. But in 20 years, I moved my family 18 times. And so we finally settled on a wonderful business opportunity in Nashville, Tennessee. And that led me to think it was a private equity deal that we were able to exit successfully for everyone involved. And it led me really to rethink about what my corporate journey had been. And the roots of my family are entrepreneurial. And I said, it's time. And throughout the career, I built a skill set as a leader of business, understanding the P&L and balance sheet. And my real love was for building teams and developing people. And I made that turn when I was 51 because I was facing ageism. And I didn't want to go back into the workforce and become that expensive older guy that could be replaced by that less experienced younger guy and less expensive. And when I say a guy, I mean guy or gal, of course. And so that's when, I made the leap into my entrepreneurial journey. I dialed in a friend who was a franchise consultant. And I said, Pete, help me think this through. And we ended up diving in through the process and becoming multi-unit franchisee. We own 4 in Nashville, 1 in Sarasota, and 1 in Huntsville, Alabama.
Wow. I really want to dive into the transition from corporate to entrepreneurship, because I meet hundreds of entrepreneurs each month. And how many people I've met that, like outside even, entrepreneurs who've made the move, and then probably dozens of executives I just network with that they learn about what I did in the book that we wrote with Never Been Promoted. And they're like, oh my gosh, I would love to be that. It's making the move from corporate over that people really struggle with, because it's like everything's built along that cog in that wheel and that machine that you create from this employment. And that move is the biggest, I think, hurdle initially. It's not the desire. It's not even come with an idea. It's how do I get away from that and become this? So I think franchising, and though I haven't taken the leap for it because I'm too busy because I did the zero to hero path, is absolutely that answer potentially. So maybe dive into that as just let's start with yours a little bit, but how you made the transition. Was it a trigger, and what you kind of see in the customers you have of how they're making that move over?
Well, I was super comfortable with it because, Ford Motor Company is franchised with all its dealers. So I understood the mindset of our dealer body, which is just terrific. They are truly entrepreneurial. And when I was making that thinking about that leap, the number one important thing was a self-assessment and talking to my wife or your spouse or your partner.
That internal support is so critical. You can't do it in a vacuum.
No. There's always a gas pedal and a brake in a relationship. And maybe that's my car background, but
wait. You might get in trouble for answering this following question. Which are you?
I am the gas and Laurie is the brake. And we drive. really well. For 32 years, we've been driving really, really well. And it works. But without her support, I couldn't have really started down this path. So that's really kind of the number one thing. And the other thing that, get back to one of your questions, is most of my candidates are reflective of the experience I have, right? So they are, corporate executives that want to jump out of the rat race, either on a parallel path or cold turkey. They have a balance sheet. They have a skill set. They just need to find the really right fit and the opportunity that gives them a level of confidence that they can do it.
So talk about that confidence. Like, who makes a good entrepreneur in the franchising world, and who doesn't?
Well, in the franchising space, let me talk about the reasons for failure, because I think that's quite telling. People who fail are undercapitalized. People who fail can't follow the playbook, which a franchisor provides. Because don't forget, it's a proven business system. It's your talents and your capital going to work in a market that they're not represented, right? So you don't have to rethink what they've already thought out, right? So you need to execute a playbook, and you need to be a good person. You need to manage people. You need to interact with customers. You need to lead a team. You just need to be a good business person and a good person. And if you can look at yourself and say, okay, I can overcome those three things, you can be successful in franchise ownership.
That's amazing. So when you say that, and I see this when I work with other customers, and just when you go to, like, let's say like a local franchise restaurant, and you see it slowly dying, and every time you've interacted with people, they seem like they have a chip on their shoulder, or it's always maybe it's a little dirty there. Like there's parts that are clearly not being done that they should be being done relative to other brands of the same type. And you see it and you're like, this is going to die because the person running it is doing it in a way that they aren't following whatever the playbook it was. Because you can see it's just getting slowly worse, and the customer service gets slowly worse, and the interactions are kind of tenuous. And you're like, I don't want to be here. I have other places I can go get food, or other places I can shop.
Right. There's a Brugger's Bagels, great store here in Nashville, Tennessee. The owner's never there. It's getting tired. It's getting old, but they have a great product, and they usually have very good staff behind it, but there's no investment. There's no passion. You don't have to be passionate about it, but you have to tend to the business. You have to make sure the work environment is set. You need to make sure, it's not what you expect, it's what you inspect. Do you have to be there 24/7 and micromanage it? Absolutely not. Do you have to be present and show up? Absolutely.
All right. So go through the different types of franchises, because I call a lot of BS on some of this, where it's like, oh, it's 100% passive. It's semi-passive. No, you're in it no one ever goes, no, you're going to work your ass off 80 hours a day in this thing. And so talk to me a little bit about the paths of franchise ownership, and maybe if you can, who's a good pick for like, what's the lifestyle, or who's a good pick for each, maybe one of them, or like high level. I'm sure there's lots, but maybe dive into that a little bit.
So, it's on a continuum. All in owner operator, you're really buying yourself a job. You're going to be involved in the daily operations. Eventually, you start to hover up as you build a team and you get focused on growth, right? And they're franchisors that want you to be owner operators, right? Any coffee shop, they want you to be in there every day, right? I don't do food, but anything outside of that, on the other side of the continuum is the executive model business, or semi-absentee. I don't like semi-absentee because absentee and business just don't go along in my belief. So I call it an executive model business. So that's where you work on it and not in it. But don't be fooled. Any new business venture requires you to roll up your sleeves and flex your entrepreneurial muscles, right? You're going to have to invest the time, and you're going to have to hire the team or build the team to start the business. But there's no reason why you can't hover up and manage it 5 to 10 hours a week as you stabilize the business and you do what a business owner should be doing, focusing on growth, focusing on KPIs, really moving the business to the next level. It's like when you take a job. I was speaking to Joe, one of my placements in the Northeast, and his first worry was, okay, I've got to build the backlog book of the business, and he got that done. And I called him last week to check in on him. And he says, what I'm working on now? I said, what? He says, my backlog's out 45 days. Now I'm getting efficient in the operations. What a beautiful thing. I said, I'm going to call you back in 60 days. Guess what? You're going to be looking for things to do, because now you're truly starting to hover up on the business and focus on the things which he wants to focus on in particular, which is growth to a real meaningful top line and bottom line business.
It's I usually ask this question a little bit later, but what is the number one entrepreneurial trait for a franchise owner?
So I look at their skill sets, because people often don't realize that the skill set that they've built in their career applies to becoming an entrepreneur.
Interesting.
But as an entrepreneur, I always kind of ask them one thing. Are you ready to eat what you kill every day? Are you ready to wake up unemployed every day? And if you're ready to do that, you're ready to let go of your W-2 and make the transition to being a business owner. And so that confidence in overcoming those fears, I think, is the top trait that I like to see in my candidates.
I give it's akin to having children. You're never actually ready for it until you just have them. And then you sort out a whole bunch of stuff because you have them now. But you're like, yep, I'm ready enough to have the conversation about having one. Next thing you have a baby. I think it's like that a little bit, where you knew it was going to be hard, but you didn't know what hard meant to become an entrepreneur. You know that you're going to work harder, but I find that I don't actually feel like I work anymore. I actually love what I do every day. And some days I'm like, it's hard to pull away to go take care of family and life and health and other things. And so that's the realization that it's going to be impossibly hard, but not the kind of hard at work where you're like, I don't even know what like it's a different kind of hard. It's an enjoyable, it's like a really good workout that you get done. You know, you're going to feel great when you're done.
Well, there's a book that I love to talk about. It's called Tiny Business, Big Money. And it just takes you through a lot of conversation about outsourcing, what you need to get done, right? And building a very efficient business. I had a candidate the other day. He's got 6 kids living in the Dallas area, and he's wondering if he can, create a parallel path to build a side hustle. And he was thinking about his time allocation. I said, well, what about having another kid? I could do that. Okay, so in 9 months, the business is going to be up and running. And then, you're going to figure out how to slot that 7th kid into all the other activities. And you think you can have another kid? You can have another business. Your wife is there for all the support, or your spouse or whoever it is. You're just going to have to find those support mechanisms. Do you want to do the bookkeeping? No. Find someone to do it for 10 hours a month, reconcile everything, pay all the bills and all that, right? You'll outsource the market. You'll find resources to put together so all the day-to-day activities that you think might overwhelm your schedule all of a sudden become managed.
Yeah, absolutely. And here's something I didn't realize until I'm about 3 or so years now into my own company that I built from scratch, brand, everything, processes. And back then I was thinking, there's no way I'm dropping $50K or $100K to buy a franchise, but I'm thinking now, like, oh my gosh, someone could have handed me a playbook day one for $100K. And all I had to do was go execute it, add my personality and sparkle into it, so to speak, still do the other things that are ancillary around it, like, a podcast or a book or whatever else that you still could do. You'd be foolish not to do that path, because I'm like, if you have the capital to go get a real playbook that works, I think it becomes an ego to want to do your own thing that gets in the way. It's less so than capital, because you're going to spend it anyway, figuring it out. Yeah, you're just going to spend it over time, way more hours, and you're going to be uncertain in your path. Now, you'll learn a lot, but I mean, for people who are thinking like, oh, I'll just do my own thing, don't. If you have the money, start your entrepreneur journey by buying a blue book. I mean, if I look back, I always ask the question, what is it? And I'll ask you this: what is it you wish you had known? I wish I would have known if I could have bought a playbook, I'd probably be 10 times more successful 3 years later. So
I ran a startup and built my franchises at the same exact time. I signed my franchise agreement in April 2013, and I signed on to run a startup the following month. Of course, with the agreement that I was building a business on the side. And it was easy to execute the franchise, right? Because I hired a general manager who 90 days before we opened up, right during construction, and she pulled together the day-to-day workflows and processes. And I did it all under the guise of, okay, let's build one. You'll help me build the second, third, fourth, fifth, and sixth. And relative to a startup, it was hard. And the key difference that I always talk about with my candidates, because I encourage you to explore both, but besides what you mentioned, you're going to spend as much in mistakes and all that stuff as you would be investing in a franchise, right? And you can do that math, but you're not on an island by yourself in a franchise, right? The franchisor is cheering you on because they make money on royalties. That only happens if you're successful, right? They're not in it for the franchise fees up front. They're in it for the ongoing royalties. That means your ongoing growth and success is super important to them. The second piece is you're surrounded by franchisees who share best practices, who you interact every day. As you go through the process of investigation, you validate with existing franchisees. If you end up being awarded an opportunity to buy into that franchise, those franchisees will become your lifelong friends. And whether it's in a Facebook group, whether it's a group chat on text, however it is, you will either be mentored or mentor someone in the franchise network, and you're not alone.
And there's a sense of community that I think you don't realize is there, and you'll certainly appreciate. The one question, and I'll throw the turd on the table, so to speak, is you just can't go buy a franchise. Typically, you go through, for lack of a better term, broker or some type of coach. There's a consultant, if you will, and you serve that role, and you help other, I think, franchise peers be successful. Tell me the do's and don'ts of selecting that person to guide and find that perfect franchise, the one that you need. I don't like the word perfect. The one that fits your style, your financial situation, your goals. Tell me about working with those individuals. Like, what should you look out for, and what should you look for, and when should you know you're just being? There's a lot of there's some people that scam, right? There's some people who aren't. Right. They're in to make commissions and not actually in there to help you. And so, talk to me about that kind of dynamic of getting started, because I think that's a big objection and a big turnoff for a lot of people is, who do I trust? How do I get going?
Well, you just said the key word. It's trust. Every candidate that comes and books a call with me has fully researched. They've gone to my website. They've gone to my LinkedIn profile. They've read my ongoing blogs, and it's fully researched. So they come to me with a level of trust, and then in 15 minutes on a phone or a Zoom, we can figure out whether it makes sense to work together. But what I would recommend as you go down this path, there are 4,000 franchises out there, or even more. My portfolio is 200, and they're just A plus, all vetted franchisors that we work with. But importantly, find that person you can trust to help guide you through the process, because you don't know if things fit in your investment profile. You don't know what kind of labor pool they're going to work with. You don't know if it's an owner operator, or you don't even know if the territory is available. You don't now know how mature the franchisor is. So what I do is, I'm not quite eHarmony, but I work with people in a 90-minute consultation, right? I met my wife on a blind date. 32 years later, it's still working. So I know how the blind date thing works, and it can be successful. But in that 90 minutes, we're going to boil down what you're looking for in the business characters and where you want to have it. And then I go back to the portfolio. I figure out where the right fit is. That's me doing the eHarmony work. And so have someone take you through that process and invest the time with you to figure out where the right fit is. It's a dating game, right? Swipe left, swipe right. You can do that all day long in your spare time, or you can work with someone like myself that can help you narrow that path. And really, I try to make people's time investment efficient, because time is the one thing we don't get back, and we can't waste it. So if we can make that time investment efficient, it will be a really good thing.
I actually quoted Ben Franklin in my book about time. It's you just can't get it back. And if I was smarter and had a better memory, my memory's great. It's just short. Right. But I 100% agree. It's the one commodity it's scarce. And I know we've gotten to know each other off air for several months. I will tell you, anybody listening to this at any time, Dave is the most effective of showing you how to manage your time into the hour of how you get the value out of your life. Like, hey, if I spend this much, I want you to talk about your thinking process, because I think this is a high skill set for you. So people who don't have these kind of skill sets, try to learn from just going that direction to some degree, or outsource it if you have to. But talk about I think one of the reasons you're so successful is you're an honest person, you care, you're straightforward with people, but your processes and efficiencies in place, I think, drive that even further. So can you talk about that a little bit behind the scenes of how you operate your own endeavor?
Well, I think you've learned I'm a bit of a data nerd, just because I believe in data doesn't lie. So every year I set out on a plan. I work 46 weeks a year. I work 28 hours a week. And I know exactly how many people I have to talk to, what my conversion rates are, and how many people I put into the pipeline, and how many people actually choose to invest in a franchise. And behind that, I set up my marketing plan and my investments to make those numbers come to life. So you're right. I do follow numbers. I do follow plan. My calendar is color coded and my time is blocked. I don't work on weekends. I don't start until Monday at 1:00 and I finish Friday at 3:00, and it's 9 to 5. And if we can't work together in that time, it means that my candidates can't invest the time during the workday to actually investigate the process. So they're not ready to do it. If they have to work on weekends, or if they work after hours, or on Fridays when they don't have meetings, you're not going to be able to manage a business doing it.
And that's the most honest answer you give them. And I'd say that because if you feel like you can't make that meeting, so if you're listening to this, I always try to give takeaways. If you're thinking franchise route and you can't carve out 30 minutes, 20 minutes to even have a conversation initially, rethink about what you're doing, and or hire a coach, or come talk to Dave at least about how can I rework my day to be more efficient. Start there, because if the passion's there, I do know this. If the passion's there, you always find a way. Always.
Well, it's clear after doing this for a while, the people that read my emails and open them up at a 85% or better rate.
I don't open your emails. I just go meet with you weekly, just to be clear.
I know.
He knows I don't open them. He's like, God, that guy never opens my email.
I understand, but you're not a candidate. The people that don't show up on time, or the people that have to reschedule more than twice, they're just not ready. And I'm honest with them, because it's not fair to them, and it's not fair to the franchisors that I work with to spin our wheels and not be efficient in an investment in time. Because, you can see we have a very structured process as we go through due diligence. And you started to ask this question. Franchises are awarded, not bought. So when you think of the process that you're going to go through, it takes about 6 weeks, right? And if you go to 8 weeks, okay. If you go to 4 weeks, we can work with that. Anything beyond 8 weeks, it's just not working, right? There's something holding you back. And, you got to go through the dating game. You got to go through an intro call. You got to go through unit economics. You got to break down the franchise disclosure documents. You got to validate with the existing franchisees. You got to go for confirmation day. So in the beginning, if it's a blind date, in the end, it's a meet the parents, right? And if you're lucky to have them award you the ability to buy into a franchise, cool. Then you decide if you want to do it. So the franchisor is protecting their brand in the process. You're protecting your money and your time investment. And if we do that successfully, we narrow it down from 3 or 4 that we've selected to investigate and do the due diligence. And at the end of the process, you're ready to say, I can see myself as the role of the owner in business. I can see myself partnering with this franchisor for the next 10 years or so. I understand what I'm going to put into it financially, understand what I think I'm going to get out. We all know forecasts are always wrong. So what's most likely, what's high, what's low, so we can get, a good estimate of where we're going to be. Yeah. And it's that due diligence in the process that people really need to invest time. And we can see where it's working and where it's not working. And where it's not working, I don't mind. I don't need your business. I'd love to have your business, but let's be fair in the process.
Yeah. And for the people listening, he had a graphic on the screen, and just walk through kind of the process steps. I think you went through it there. There was like 6 steps, and I've been through some of these, and we've gotten to the point of FD, the disclosure agreement. And we just, I just don't think we have time, because I was, I had a book writing. I was like, I have a podcast launching. I have a business that we're, growing rapidly. I had my own, right. So I backed out from the process from it, because I was like, I don't want to waste your time, and, like whatever it is. But talk about those steps. Like, I think just maybe, and this is like a layer down. So if you're really interested in the franchise world, listen up, because this is what you're gonna need to know. But this is the process that happens, and this is would you call a consultant's role in it? Could you explain that? Because I think people got to understand that you're not alone during even this steps here. So maybe talk a little bit about the steps and how you fit into that to help them.
So after we conduct our consultation, I go back and I find the 3 or 4 franchises that are a really good fit. We meet for about 40 minutes and talk those through. And then that kicks off the process for each franchisor. They'll all reach out to you right away and set the initial call or intro call, right? That's where everyone gets to know each other. You can't jump ahead to step 3 and say, give me all the numbers. That's not how it works, right? It's a dating game. They need to like you. You need to like them. And then you step into unit economics. And that's where you get a high level overview of the business equation. Now, understand, franchisors or myself cannot make earnings claims. Okay. So everything that the franchisor will speak to you will come from the franchise disclosure document. And that's the next step. And in between unit economics and the franchise disclosure document, you'll start to say, okay, I've narrowed it down from 4 to 2 or 3 to 1. And you start building out a pro forma, right? Every business has a plan. And you start working through the franchise disclosure documents. And you understand out of item 7 what the average investment is. You understand out of item 19 what the performance is. If it's established existing franchise, they might have more data. If it's an emerging franchise, they might have less. But then you go into validation. And in between each one of these steps, which is about a week long, you and me, or my candidate, myself, have a 25-minute conversation. I share a little bit of information every time we go. I fill the gaps of knowledge that's missing. And as we work through the steps, I'm a coach. I'm a mentor. I call them huddles. Let's huddle up and see what we need to do to keep working through this, right? My favorite part of the investigation process is validation. You meet with the founders, you meet with the existing franchisees on individual calls or group calls. You start to validate everything you're hearing, right? Because that's what you need to do. It's your money. You need to create your assumptions and build them from all the information you're gathering. And then if you get to the point after validation where the brand feels like you are the right person, they'll send you an invitation to a discovery day or confirmation day or meet the team day, whatever they call them. And that's where you meet the parents, right? It's the final time, as we spoke earlier about, okay, I get it. Let's see if we can put the ring on the finger here. And if I get awarded the opportunity to buy in to the franchise, I'll decide. And then after discovery day, you have about 7 to 10 days to make that decision. Those territories don't last forever. You have to make a decision. Throughout the process, if you can't make a call, that's clear that you're probably not going to show up to meet with your employees, right? If you can't make a decision, that's probably real evidence that from a business partnership standpoint, you're not going to be decisive in taking actions and leading your business. So I always talk to my candidates, how you behave in the process is reflective of what kind of business partner you're going to be, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And that's the decision. And so I think, you are buying something very expensive, so to speak. There are risks. I do believe franchising, if you follow the playbook, your risks are certainly decreased if you want to become an entrepreneur. There's always risk, but that's the reward side because there is a multiplier to it. And thank you for taking the time to go through that, because I think you did it very concisely, and a lot of people don't really understand the process from the consultant side, and it's very convoluted, and then people just confused buyers leave, right? They're gone. Right. I will say that pulling the trigger, that's where your prep work, and that's where you don't want to also ruin your relationship on the franchise side by bringing people who never buy. And right. So I think that's part of where your upfront qualifications you're doing with people. And I say this because I don't want people, if they interact with you, just think, man, he was so cold. It's like, he is because he knows you're not going to move forward. Because it's not to be mean. It's just, hey, this is business. You're a kind person, but you're straightforward. And it's like, and you have to, be reflective of yourself, of the reality of what you're doing. You're desperate for something. You're angry at your job this week, whatever you're doing. Be serious about this, because this is a life-changing event. And I think having that up front, like, hey, let's get things on the table. Let's build trust, but let's also build it from a idea that we move forward. We find the one you want and you're ready to go.
Yeah. And a couple of those key things is your balance sheet needs to be ready, right?
Great point.
You need to have liquidity to get a loan. You need to have a credit score to get a loan. But most importantly, you need to have your partner or spouse on board. Don't get to the end of the process and say, oh, the emergency brake is on. No, don't do that. Don't do that. Oh, yeah, I can make decisions. She's supportive. Well, that's just a big red flag to me. Well, wait a minute. Where is she? Can we talk on the next call? So it's super, super important to have that buy-in. And that's part of my qualification process. And honestly, to be clear, I'm 100% okay with 2 answers, yes and no. Yes, great, we did it right. Fantastic. I've helped you kind of realize a dream of business ownership through franchising. Fantastic. Ring the bell. I'm happy. You're happy. We're going to stay connected. And I hope you send me referrals. The second one is no. Okay, I get it. It's not the right time. Maybe we picked the wrong brand, or, it just wasn't for you. And you wanted to go take a job because that's where you feel security is. Fantastic. Okay. Hopefully I've made a friend. Hopefully I get a referral. And so, that's the way it is. We're not selling anything. We're just helping people through the process.
Absolutely.
And point where they make a decision.
We're going to move towards a hot seat, but I want you to know that I think it's time for you to promote yourself. I think you establish your knowledge and credibility. It is shameless plug time, Dave. Go ahead, throw down the 30 to 60 seconds of what people should do right now if they're interested in meeting with you, or having more information about buying or becoming a franchise owner.
So it's real simple. Go to my website at empoweredfranchisee.com. You can do your research. You can decide whether you trust me, and you can book a call. Okay. Go to my LinkedIn profile, see what my experience is, see how I speak about it. Go to my YouTube channel where I have endless videos about my positioning and my thoughts. You can read my blogs, which are about 300 strong. I write it every Saturday. You can get on my email list. But in all those venues, you can just simply book a call. And I have a calendar link, so it's real simple. And that call will take 15 minutes. You can call it the best call of your week. You can call it a virtual coffee. You can call it whatever you want. But let's spend 15 minutes and book a call and see if it makes sense to work together. Yep. And that's all you have to do. And any of those venues have the ability to go to my calendar link and book a 15-minute call.
And you're on LinkedIn as David Greenberg, spelled Greenberg.
That is correct.
So David, there's a lot of Dave Greenbergs out there. He's the pretty good looking one.
Yeah. Thank you. I'm assuming you're going to put all this information post-edit up on the screen.
We're very lazy here at Never Been Promoted. Remember, I've never been promoted, so probably not going to get the most out of me at any point. Yeah. I cut my tie just to symbolize cut ties to corporate. All right, let's warm up the hot seat. And I'm going to have you do the perspective of yourself or however you see this. But here's the first question. Are you ready?
Yes.
What's one thing you wish you would have known, looking back, before becoming an entrepreneur?
I wish I'd done it sooner. I waited too long. My grandfather founded his own business. It was a family business, sold in the 70s, and he did very well and retired well. And we enjoyed all that. Didn't get anything, but we enjoyed it from a life standpoint. So I wish I had done it sooner.
Yeah, that's a big one. I mean, the knowing that I could have trusted myself. Mm-hmm. I could have. I had it. You had what you needed to be, and you probably knew it earlier, but you just weren't ready to. Life gets at you to hold you up sometimes to do that, because it's nice to make good money in your career, and usually you leave right in the middle of making your most. So that's
and I was also foolishly loyal. I love Ford Motor Company. I love the people I work with. It was very good to me, and I thank them for it every day. But they kind of shamed you if you had an outside interest and weren't 100% dedicated 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. 24/7.
Yeah. No thanks.
Yeah.
No Kool-Aid. I will take that Jonestown. No thanks.
Today's world is different. Everyone's got an income property if you have a bit of a balance sheet. So, having not being single threaded was one of the things that I missed out on. I was always single threaded.
That's probably a second question. What do you wish you wouldn't have done? That's
I wish I had invested in additional income streams sooner.
Agreed. Even small ones, even ones that have $1,000 coming in, $2,000, little things add up, especially when there's an equity piece behind it. It's a no-brainer.
Well, it's portfolio. So there's risk money, and there's investment money, and there's fund money. However you put it together, just get that plan going so you can build that passive income.
Yeah.
And the other thing, I don't know where this fits in, but I always talk about fear, right? Yeah. In the world I lived in the corporate space, we always feared restructuring. We always feared right sizing. We were always wondering what if the pension was going to be available. And you were always working for that 5 to 10% or the bonus. Or the next level of leadership, which came with perks or more salary. And that kind of created a bunch of maybe fear, because someone else controlled how I was going to provide for my family.
Yep. That's right.
I wrote a blog during the pandemic, and I also lived it. When I became an entrepreneur, fear was different. It was all my fear. It was like Dale Carnegie, if you've ever been to the class, how do you get rid of worry? You take action. Well, all the fear that fills you at least filled me as an entrepreneur, was stuff that I could fix, stuff that I could go do. It's like, okay, well, what do I need to do to create a customer? What do I need to do to fix the facility? What do I need to do to hire a new person? There was no committee of 1 or 2 or 10. It was just go do it. So that fear was something that became empowering and energizing, as opposed to a fear in the corporate world, which sometimes, because, the thing that I've enjoyed as an entrepreneur is the change in my lifestyle.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's the fear. I talk about that in my book, that it's part of the process. And there's no, first of all, the lie, the perception that we've been built into that W-2 is secure income is not. You could be gone way faster than you can if it's your own endeavor. Your own endeavor, you control the income, you control the outcome. And if you blame anyone else, you're going to be in the exact same spot anyway. So you're going to fail. But if you know that it's on you, then your chances of failure go way down, because there's nothing there. So, I mean, like that fear does not actually exist. There's real fear that you're misled to believe that you are safe in a W-2 job. You really are not. There's no loyalty the other way. And I don't believe you should have it the other. You should somewhat work to live, not buy into this idea of it's somewhere between the Gen Z version and a Gen X version, I believe.
So here's where I'm going to call a hot seat. Can I call it my own hot seat?
Call your hot seat. I like audibles. We're entrepreneurs. We move it. No, please.
Well, seriously. So why am I, if I'm a successful multi-unit franchisee, why am I running a business called the Empower Franchisee, which is 100% me, something I own? Well, just think of it. If you're an executive model business in a franchise world, you can hover up, hire general manager to run the place. I've moved from active operator to build it over 5 years to almost a silent partner. We have people running it for us. So that allowed me to do 2 things: continue to annoy my wife by staying at home and work in her office space, or actually go out and do something. And I couldn't put more capital in the market. So I went to my friend Pete, and he said, become a franchise consultant. I've been doing it for a number of years. And it's probably one of the most rewarding things I do, because it's real simple. I've done it. Corporate guy, entrepreneur, multi-unit franchisee. Now I show you how to do it. My decades of experience is there for you at no cost. So that's why also I'm very protective about who I give my time, right? Because that is super important to me. I invest in people that are going to invest back.
Exactly. And so I think that's a great point. This is an investment in yourself, just from a lifestyle, from a fulfillment. I think the money will be there unless you just really cave it in. And honestly, because like you said, it's proven models. The franchise places that you'll buy don't want you to fail. They actually are going to find reasons to make you successful. You will, you got to believe in yourself, because you will be likely outside of major economic things like COVID or things that had happened, but that just changes how you might look at your franchise moving forward. Like, I want something that happens again, that's protected by. So,
well, I call those recession resistant and pandemic resistant businesses. So essential services. Just think, HVAC doesn't care whether there's a recession or a pandemic. You need to fix it. Plumbing, you need to fix. Essential services. And then there are other services. I love the health, wellness, and beauty space, right? Hair continues to grow. Nails continue to get long. Beauty routines, you might skip a latte before you give up the color on your hair. So there are things in the recurring revenue kind of businesses with professional level of employees, which is really sticky revenue and very often recession resistant. I love that space. And it can be bricks and mortar, or it can be service based.
Yeah, there's lots of options. And that's the point, is don't be overwhelmed by it. That's where you come in, is you help guide it, clear the noise, and help you really get focused and get excited and get ready to become what you've always wanted to become. And I think that's where your strongest value is also just focusing the time and getting it there and learning how to invest in yourself along the way. It is hot seat time. It's that time of day. Are you ready?
I am ready.
Doesn't matter if you are. I'm still going to ask it. All right. Favorite scheduling technology. Oh, by the way, I do make this claim. I collect this data for the intent of getting sponsors for the show. So enjoy. But also you can learn from it of what you should use, what other entrepreneurs are using as well. Favorite scheduling for calendars technology.
So you asked me a question about my data. I'm also kind of an efficiency nut. So I believe in automation. I don't hire a team. I'm a solo entrepreneur with a support staff that is contract. So you need to have the workflows and automation built. All right. And if you don't have that, you're just going to be buried and not be able to service your candidates in a quality way. You got to show up when they show up. But to answer your question, Calendly, I absolutely love Calendly. It's very simple. It's very affordable. It integrates well into my CRM and into my Google Calendar. And candidates love it because you got automatic reminders and boom, it's a fantastic tool. They love to self-schedule. There's nothing worse than going back and forth. Does this time work for you? Does this time work for you? No. Yes. Let me know what time works for you. Just go ahead and book it. Get past the apprehension of clicking on a link these days. Sometimes that's apprehensive, but just do it. Calendly is fantastic.
Yeah, I support it too. We use it, religiously in ours, and also as an Atlanta Tech Village, member, as our company is. They came out of there. That's where they graduated from, which is great. Right. Favorite CRM?
I love HubSpot.
Too.
It's simple. The automation is not overwhelming to implement. I have it in all my businesses. I have 7 businesses, and the one we're talking about today, I use it very actively on the automation side.
Yeah. You integrate it nicely with blog, website, social, some other things. So if you use it correctly and you manage your contacts correctly, then the costs can come down. And also, entrepreneurs, if you didn't know this, there are, if you're a small startup, there's way better pricing you can realize for, I think, 12 to 18 months sometimes with them. So you don't have to jump full in pricing. You can jump in at a much lower price point to try it.
To be honest with you, the $50 a month thing is fine for a while. Now, when you want automation, that's when you have to step up and pay more. But you need templates, you need the pipeline, you need to structure your workflows.
Yep.
And HubSpot does a great job. But, I got to talk about email marketing, right? Because MailChimp is just the best. I love them. Thank you, MailChimp.
Yeah. We use MailChimp as well because I'm with you. So MailChimp's the simplest form and they're getting better. It's just the pricing's right. It's really fair and it's really high value for, I think, the investment. So I'll take that into a CRM subset, but definitely MailChimp.
Deliverability is fantastic, and the ease of use is really good because I have a copywriter and I have a designer, and we all work tandemly in the cloud on all these different applications, and that's super important.
Yeah. What's your favorite business book?
Oh my gosh, I have a number of them. I talked a little bit about this book, Tiny Business, Big Money. By Elaine Polfelt. She's super down to earth Forbes writer. I don't mind giving her a plug, but I really enjoyed Tiny Business, Big Money. The other one that she wrote, which I really enjoy, and I started with, is the $1 Million One Person Business. And when you start peeling back the onion on these businesses, whether they're franchises or starting up your own, you understand the mindset of the entrepreneur. And you see how they leverage resources very effectively. I also like The Wealthy Franchisee. Scott Greenberg isn't a relative of mine, but he started in edible arrangements as a franchisee. He's a kind of speaker on the circuit, helping other franchisors get their franchisees in a position. I think it's really good to, grounding book. And these are all simple reads.
Fantastic list.
I'm working on my own, but it won't be out till next year. We can talk about that next year.
Yeah, well, that's what we'll do. I'll definitely have you on the show for that.
Well, my point there is, and I'm going to say, you were going to ask me a question, weren't you? You're going to say, Dave, what's the number one thing people are looking for when they come to me, right? You were going to ask me that.
Of course, that was my last question. I'm glad you got to it now.
Well, hopefully not the last one, but whenever you want to do it. But it's freedom and flexibility. It's real simple. How do you define personal and professional freedom? Because you don't have it if you're in the W-2 world, even though you think you might. You still have even if you're at the top, you got shareholders or board members or quarterly reports to earnings calls and all that stuff. So it's freedom, right? Personal and professional freedom. And then flexibility. It's real simple. People want to be the captain of their own calendars.
Right. Their own time. The time is the most valuable asset you have. And that's the one
you don't get it back. You only have that family once. You only have that baseball or volleyball game or music concert or play. It only happens once. Don't miss it. Get the flexibility so you can enjoy it.
Yep. Absolutely. That's probably the best advice you can give anyone is don't miss the moments that actually count in life for a job or money. And anybody's willing to fire you over something like that, you're in the wrong spot. Just be sell a house before you have to give up about that stuff. What's your favorite quote?
Reach for the stars, but don't keep your feet on the ground.
I like that. That's good. Stay grounded.
Reach for the stars, but keep your feet on the ground. My father and my grandfather are my true mentors. They're both entrepreneurs, and I could go on forever. Grandfather as a young kid says, Dave, do you want to be the hunter or the hunted? Because he was in the business of generating his own income. I want to be the hunter, Pops. Okay, great. And so we have all these sayings in the family that really kind of created the character of my entrepreneurship mindset. But I do like that one, right? Reach for the stars, but keep your feet on the ground.
May, so some new content I pushed out. I'm going to ask you the question now. Would you want to be the bread, the butter, or the toaster in an organization? There's only one right answer, by the way. Only one right.
As a leader of an organization, I believe your power and knowledge is in the organization. And it's your responsibility as a leader to draw that knowledge and draw that smartness out and deploy it in the best way you can to accomplish your goals. And I think the toaster does that. I think you can adjust the temperature. I think you can adjust the cook time. I think you bring together the ingredients and help create something that you want. I don't know if that's what you were thinking.
That's the wrong answer.
Damn.
Here's the right answer. Butter is not good for you. It's fat. It tastes great, but it doesn't work really well without the bread or the toaster together. It's just kind of good. The toaster is worthless without the bread. So the only thing that matters is to be the bread. And here's the main reason. And this is what I told my boss when I asked him this question one day. I said, the only reason the reason you should be the bread is so you can eat me. So he told me to get out of this.
Let me come back at that. So this is why I didn't say bread, because as an entrepreneur, I've been on a health journey as well. It's real easy when you're an entrepreneur to get on health journeys.
Right.
We all need them, right? But no processed foods and whole foods. That's part of my health journey. And it's amazing when you think of that and just eat whole foods. And bread's a processed food, right? So is butter.
It is. So but this is a metaphor. I wouldn't eat any of that stuff because I'm a health nut who doesn't drink coffee anyway. That's like I'm 3 months in. Anyway, so last a few questions. So I'm going to ask you this question, but I'm going to answer it for you. What's your favorite bank? Just kidding. What's your favorite bank for entrepreneurs to use?
I like private banks. I have Pinnacle Bank here in Nashville. I have a personal banker, and you don't need a huge balance sheet to get that. You just got to choose the right bank. I think banking relationships are really important. Here's the shameless plug. In the process, we'll introduce you to either Fran or Benetrends. There are only two companies that really help people finance franchises through Rob's, HELOCs, or SBA loans. You won't go to the bank for your SBA loan because they don't understand franchising. You'll be there forever talking about history and proof of concept. But when you open up your bank account to run your business, you're going to want to be there, have that private bank for the credit cards. You want to have the private bank for a line of credit. And if you get in trouble, you need a private banker to call.
Yeah, agreed. And I think the smaller banks, ones that are tailored towards an entrepreneurial market, it's a different kind of bank for sure. Agreed. And I hadn't heard of that bank, so it's another one we'll definitely look at. Last question. Have you ever been promoted?
I have been promoted in the corporate world, and I have promoted myself often. I've also fired myself many times. So I don't know. Is this one of those setup questions again? What should I be saying?
Well, you can't be part of the club now. You've been promoted, but you can look at the club from the outside. My next book, which will be Asked to Leave, we can talk about all the dumb things we've done in our careers. It really will be the next book. It'll be super humorous, unlike Never Been Promoted, which is a little more serious. Listen, Dave, thank you so much for taking the time. I want to give you the kind of the floor to say once again, simply where do you want people to get a hold of you? And if I think the 15 minutes is a free consultation, so that giveaway, but give them the directly, where do you want them to get a hold of you?
Go to empoweredfranchisee.com and book a call with me. Okay. Or you can call me on my cell, 207-838-7134. And if I don't know you, I won't answer, but I will call you back. So really the best thing to do, and I know Thomas and his team are going to put my Calendly link up here, book a 15-minute call. All right. You have 15 minutes to invest, to talk to Dave and see if it makes sense to work together. And we'll figure it out in 15 minutes, but take some time and do your homework. Check me out. LinkedIn, David Greenberg in Nashville, Tennessee. And you'll put that link up there, right? You'll put my link up there, Thomas?
Oh, absolutely. The technology will for me. I won't type anything because I'll type. I'm the king of, my tie-ups are legendary. So I have a T-shirt that says that. It says, I actually say my typos are legendary with an N in it, and people don't realize it's misspelled. But thank you, Dave, so much. By the way, listen, everyone else who's listened, who's gotten to this point, you have his phone number, so spam him. I would text first. I would just say, hey, I listened on the Never Been Promoted podcast. Shoot him a text first. And then that usually gets people warmed up to pick up your phone call right after. But Dave, thank you so much for coming on the show.
Thank you, Thomas. Really appreciate it. I'm hoping I get promoted someday.
No, you've already been promoted. That ship has now sailed.
Cool. Let's do it again.
Thank you, everybody, for listening. Never Been Promoted. Stay tuned. We'll have some more franchise conversations to come from social media from this. Look for the articles and the posts. And I strongly recommend you subscribe to David's newsletter from his website, because it is full of information that I never opened. No, I see it in other channels, to be fair. But definitely subscribe. Thank you, Dave. Everyone, thank you for listening, and go get out there and go unleash your entrepreneur.
Thanks for listening to Never Been Promoted with Thomas Helfrich. Make sure to check the show notes for our guest contact information and any relevant links. Connect with Thomas personally at neverbeenpromoted.com.